This is a short lecture to explain how to install Oracle VirtualBox and install on that a Linux operating system. I'm going to show you how to install Ubuntu, and from there how to install the mySQL and MariaDB servers. This particular one will focus solely on the mySQL server. Separately, I'll show you the MariaDB one because you will want two separate virtual boxes for this. So, the first thing you need to do, download VirtualBox. Okay, that's at virtualbox.org. You will need to download the binary for the application, for the VirtualBox application. If you've got a Windows machine, you're going to want this. If you've got a Mac OS, for different Linux distributions, this one. Probably the vast majority of you will be either Windows or Mac. In addition to that, you will need to download the Oracle VirtualBox extension pack. You'll notice that's down here, Oracle VM VirtualBox extension pack 6.1.14. Go through the process for your operating system in order to install the VirtualBox platform and then to add onto it the extension pack. I've already done that here. I'm assuming that for your particular platform you will be able to do that. If you can't, please let me know. The second thing you need to do is, once you've got that working, you'll notice I've already created various virtual machines. You will need to create a virtual network. Okay, that's in the tools section. I've already got one here, VBoxNet0. It has a particular IP address and DHCP server is enabled, etc. So just running through that, simply doing a create, you'll notice that it just increments on that, and if I say enable, there's VBoxNet1. Okay, that's the tools. Now we want to create a new virtual machine, so we say create. Now when you first installed, it will not show up this window, it will show up this window, which is the guided mode. You need to change it to expert mode. That's this option here. Okay. The default location will probably not be .virtualbox VM, it will be VirtualBox VMs. I changed mine because I'm running a Linux system. If you go over here, ls, I don't want to see my virtual boxes here in the home directory. Mostly because I've already got something that begins with V, videos, such as the one that I'm currently recording. It's entirely up to you if you change that or not. Second, the type of virtual machine you are going to install. You are going to install a Linux one, and for this particular video I'm going to install Ubuntu and 64-bit. Almost any Linux version you want to install will be 64-bit at this point. 32-bit is legacy. Okay, so 64-bit Ubuntu, you might pick a different operating system, that's fine. By different operating system I mean a different version of Linux. Linux Mint is not here, but I kind of like it, as you may be able to see, because over here if you look, I have Mint browser. That's a Linux Mint system. BKVM also runs Linux Mint. Okay. This is the amount of memory your virtual machine will use. Okay. 1000 megabytes, 1 gigabyte is low. 2048 is probably reasonable. It's not that important that you get this number correct at this point. Okay, anything that's a reasonably decent size will be okay, but you can adjust this very easily after creation. This issue, on the other hand, this is very important. You're going to create the virtual hard disk now. Okay, and so we want to go from there. Okay. You won't be able to continue without giving it a name. I'm going to call this ECE 656 MySQL, because it's going to be the MySQL virtual machine. Okay, it's asking, it's telling me rather, this is the location that it's going to store the hard drive at. Defaults, again, this is 10 gigabyte default. It's too small. You won't even be able to install Linux on it. I'm going to recommend, it depends how much storage you have, but something like 32 gigabytes is probably a much better value. Okay. If you look at the size of the Yelp data, you're looking at about 15 gigabytes just for that. Okay. Hard disk file type. This, generally speaking, for this course will not matter at all. The default is fine. If at some future date you're thinking in terms of, for example, if you use a Mac, you're thinking of getting the Parallels virtual machine software, you might want to use this. Okay. I'm not using a Mac. I'm not planning on using Parallels. I wouldn't do it. Okay. You can look these up if you want, it doesn't hurt. This is probably what you want to use, the fixed size. It means it will set up the entire disk at this point. It will reserve all 32 gigabytes as a file on your file system. There are two advantages of this. First, you know it's not going to run out of space. It's going to allocate the entire 32 gigabytes and be done with it. And second, it will be faster. Dynamically allocated means it will set up initially maybe nothing, as little as nothing, but I believe it sets up about 2 gigabytes and it continues to set up in 2 gigabyte chunks. So if it runs out of space, and that is up to this limit, okay, this becomes a limit, it will simply allocate another 2 gigabyte chunk. So it'll start off at 2 gigabytes or 0 gigabytes even, and then as it needs space, it will allocate another 2 gigabytes. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Eventually it comes up to 32. If it runs out of space at that point, it will stop. The advantage of this, it's much faster at creation time. The disadvantage, when you run out of space, it needs to allocate more space at that point. I'm going to use dynamically allocated at this for this video, but in general you would, as I said, be better off to use a fixed size. I'm using that because, as you see, the allocation is more or less instantaneous. 32 gigabyte file creation would take longer. Now, we now have a virtual machine with the specifications, sort of. Okay, we're going to go over to settings and network. There are 4 potential adapters. You'll notice that 3 of them are not enabled. Only one is enabled, and it's enabled as NAT. You can leave that alone, it's fine, but it's not going to be enough because you wouldn't be able to connect to the machine from your machine. You would be able to run it, and it would be able to have network access, but it wouldn't be able to run itself. So we will set a second network adapter, and we're going to say that's a bridged adapter, and you need to pick whichever of your connections. I have 2 connections on this machine. One is Ethernet and one is wireless. Because I'm only connected to a wireless network, I'm going to do that at the moment. Second thing, advanced, promiscuous mode, allow. The reason you want to allow this is because otherwise there's a lot of software that will not be able to run correctly. Okay. Then the third one, and this is where our network tool aspect comes in. We're going to say we want, we're going to say we want an internal network. Sorry, not an internal network. We're going to say we want a host only adapter. We have to choose, well, if you've only created one such network, you use that. Normally I would just have the one network. Because I created this second network, I'm going to use that. Okay, again, allow all. Okay. This is important because we want to create the machine with different network interfaces that will enable us to connect to the machine. Okay. Now, we're almost ready to start the machine, but we don't want to quite yet because we don't have the operating system to install on it. So, go to ubuntu.com, download Ubuntu server, may as well get the latest version. Okay, it'll ask you to download it. Okay, and that's Ubuntu 20.4 live server. Okay, I'm not interested in downloading it because I downloaded it earlier. Ubuntu, you'll see that it's there. Okay, so I don't have to waste time on that. Start the machine. Okay, this irrelevant, wrong. This is not even visible. This again, irrelevant, wrong. This is an older version of Ubuntu that I have lying around. I'm not going to use. None of them are Ubuntu 20. So click on the file, add. I've already set it up for downloads. If it wasn't, you'll need to get to the download section. Okay, and I'm not sure why it's not showing up the Ubuntu. Just a minute, that's strange. It should be showing up Ubuntu version 20. Downloads. Wait a minute, that's Ubuntu 18. I downloaded Ubuntu 20. Where did it store it? Just a minute. You may notice that it's tried to start creating the machine, and I don't want it to. So I'll just turn that off. Okay. Cancel. I'll get rid of that. We need to find the Ubuntu version 20. Don't save the machine state, just go away. Okay. Somewhere here is my downloads. Completed. Show me in my file system. Oh, it's in temp Mozilla. Okay. /temp Mozilla PASword 0. Okay. There it is. Okay. So we'll move that from /temp Mozilla Ubuntu to downloads. Okay. I don't need to move it to downloads. I'm moving it to downloads because it's convenient for me to do so that I won't lose it. I'll know where it is. Start this. Oops, it's not going to work. No bootable medium found. So one of the things that's nice about this is I get to show you what to do if you didn't manage to get things right in terms of the very first installation. What you need, and we'll just close this off, is we go settings, storage, no, wait a minute, not here, just a sec, devices, optical drives, whoops, devices, optical drives, sorry, choose a disk image. Okay, and this is where we get back to exactly the same thing as if we'd been there at the beginning. We want to add one, and now we're in downloads, and there it is. So we will open that one. Okay, it's now there. Choose that one. That's now there. Machine reset. This will restart the machine, but now the optical device is in there, and so it will start booting properly. Okay. Checking integrity may take some time, yada yada. Okay, I'll increase the screen size, view, scaled mode. Whoop. And it's slowly starting up with some nice key random art and who knows what all else. But this should be connecting. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. There we go. Ubuntu 20. LTS means long-term support. Much better to have that than the other one. The .10 versions, they change every 6 months. Long-term support changes every 18 months. So it's more stable. A typical database person prefers stability. English. Okay, English, US, whatever. We're fine with that. Notice it is now checking each of the network connections. 10.0.2.15 is the NAT network connection. 192.168.1.23 is the bridged adapter, and 192.168.57.3 is the host-only adapter. Proxy address, unless you have a proxy for your outside world, you won't need it, and because this is a virtual machine, you almost certainly won't need it. Mirror address, Ubuntu, fine. Use an entire disk, yes, this is a virtual machine. Okay. Set this machine up as a virtual LVM group, fine, it doesn't really matter. Encrypt it, it's entirely up to you if you want to. This is sitting as a virtual machine on your machine. Whether or not you want to is up to you. I do my banking using a virtual machine, and I do encrypt that and have passwords, and I do it as an entirely separate machine. Okay. It's creating some recommendations for how it wants to set things up. It's suggesting Ubuntu VG as an LVM group. Why it wants only 20 gigabytes in the LVM partition volume, I haven't the foggiest idea. I'm actually going to go back and say, for what I'm doing, I really don't want an LVM group. I just want to do it direct. It's much simpler. Okay, it's going to simply set the thing as 32 gigs on a single partition. It's very simple, it's got no worries. It's got some little grub partition for the whole thing, which is fine. Okay. Do you want to do this? This is a standard question because this is an operating system installation. It is assuming that you have a actual physical disk, and you may have data on it, and if you do, it's all going to get lost. So yes, we want to continue. Name. Pick a name for yourself. Well, I'm going to just use my name. My server's name. Whoops. It insists ECE 656 -MySQL. Pick a username. I'm using this because I've used this forever. Okay. Choose a password. Okay. I have some nice little password algorithms that I use. Which, generally speaking, work. You can use whatever password you want to. It's up to you. Okay. Install open SSH server. It's worth asking it to do, but I don't think it's going to do it. Version 18, I asked it to do it and it doesn't. We'll find out. Okay. These are various nice little server things that you might want to have. Actually, this one's particularly amusing. Kata containers are lightweight virtual machines. Okay, so, but this is a virtual machine, so you wouldn't want it. None of this is particularly relevant or useful for what you want, so we'll leave that like that. And now, installing kernel, tick-tock, tick-tock. This will take a little while. I suggest you fast forward the video. I'm not sure how long this is going to take. I really don't. What I'm going to do is pause the video recording at this point, and then I'll reconnect when it's done. Because, well, who knows how long it's going to take. Okay, the installation completed. You may notice actually at the tail end of it, it has this lovely little statement saying file system configuration, configuring cloud init, but in particular installing OpenSSH server, so maybe it actually has, and that'll be nice. Hit the reboot button and see what happens. Failed unmounting CD-ROM, well, that's fine. We will do a hard reboot, because when a soft reboot doesn't work, a hard reboot will. Ubuntu booting up, coming up. Everything's chugging away, starting everything. The speed with which this will start will depend on your system. Logging in. Logged in. Okay. There's a few little things that it spat out because it's still doing some stuff. ifconfig. Why do this? Oh, please finish this nonsense. Okay. sbin ifconfig. Oh, tell me. Where is ifconfig? Don't tell me you don't have it. Okay. How else can I find out the network names? I'm going to pause the video for a second and look this up. Okay, that was actually relatively quick. A quick examination found that version 20 annoyingly doesn't include it. So let's sudo su. Okay. Those of you who are used to using Windows, you probably are a computer administrator in Windows. This reflects a terrible design within Windows. Mac is fundamentally running on what's called BSD Unix. So it's Unix. In Unix you normally operate as a user, and this is correct because you don't want to have arbitrary control over the machine most of the time. You only want to have SU means super user. You only want to have super user ability when there are certain things you need to do. Okay, such as installing applications. Apt install NetTools. Okay, I don't know why. The Linux world is slightly dumb at times. They insist on changing things that work fine for no particularly good reason. Okay, ifconfig is showing us our different network connections. Notice that 192.168.57.3. Okay, if we're over here on a terminal window on our own machine, if you're on Windows, you may need to install software called PuTTY, P-U-T-T-Y, in order to be able to get an SSH connection, or you could install the Cygwin tools. I may give you pointers in that direction, but SSH 192.168.57.3 3, I believe it was. Yes. That should have worked. Whoa. There we go. Entered the wrong password, got it right the second time. You'll notice it lists nicely the IP addresses, okay? You probably only need either the host only or the bridged, but it doesn't hurt to have them both. Okay. This is a connection from my machine to that machine, to the virtual machine. Okay. I don't need to be there at the moment. If you want to, by the way, set up SSH keys so that you don't even need to enter the password. Going back over here, let's switch back to regular user mode. Is MySQL installed? It may be, it may not. It is not. Okay, so you may notice, there you go, it's actually telling you exactly what you need to do to install the MySQL stuff, except it's telling you to install the client. You don't want to install the client. At list and MySQL server. Okay, MySQL server -8. Okay, at install MySQL server -8.0. Oops. Ah. -0.8-. Sorry, this is being slightly irritating. There we go. Whoops, can't do that as regular user. At install MySQL server -8.0. Yes, please do this. It will download it from the necessary site, and by the way, you do want Ubuntu version 20, not version 18. Version 18 would install MySQL version 5.7. You want version 8. Okay. Progress takes a little while. I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to go through this wait time. Oh, maybe it's happening faster. It's happening faster than I thought. We'll just keep it going. Setting up, blah blah blah. Run. Nope, it's stuck again. Pause. At this point, we should now have MySQL server on, and associated client software will be there to access it on our virtual machine. If you want MySQL version information, we're running version 8.0021. It doesn't hurt to do an update, having just installed the system, and an upgrade likewise, just to make sure that everything is up to date. Everything that we run is up to date. So we'll have a few things that probably have to be updated. Ubuntu version 20 is relatively recent, so that shouldn't be a problem. The MySQL server that we installed should be the latest version. There's an outside chance that it wouldn't be, simply because it may have dependencies that prevent that. We'll find out that relatively quickly. This is 78-80% progress. This is relatively quick going, so we shouldn't have a problem waiting for it. And nearly done. The last 1% takes all the time. Do. See, that last 1%. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick-tock. You probably want to fast forward through this little bit. Oh, I'd pause the video, except the moment I pause it, it's guaranteed pretty much to be done. Yep, there we go, I was about to pause. Okay, make sure everything's updated, and we didn't expect any difference from that. MySQL-version .21, I believe that's exactly what we had before. Now, MySQL, try and start it. Who are you? Okay, the answer is you're root at this point. If you want to know the status of the server, type status. Okay, the version is client information. This is server version, and you'll notice we're version 8.0.21. Okay, show databases. Everything has to end in a semicolon. So there are 4 databases by default. There's this annoying little root thing that we don't particularly want. So let's start by creating a user other than root. So I'm going to create user PAS Ward. You can create what you like. ECE 656 for what it's worth. Okay, the user has a location. I'm going to have at any location. Location is 2 things effectively. It's either local or remote. If it's remote, you can specify the particular specific, whoops, not identified by password. Yes, PSSWRD quote. That should do it. Nope, sorry. Got to check the syntax on this. I'll pause a sec while I look it up. Okay, I'll show you the relevant little bit. This should be considered your Bible in terms of MySQL, also MariaDB, or more precisely this reference manual for version 8. This is the create user section, identified by authentication string. So in fact, create user PAS Ward at % identified by, and so I actually just do that. Okay, that creates a user. Okay, grant all on oh wait a minute, I need a database at this point. Create database, let's call it ECE 656, and that's it. Grant all, or all privileges on ECE 656 dot star, means everything that we create in that, to quote PAS Ward at quote %. Okay, you may need to flash privileges. There's an easier solution. Exit and restart your MySQL service. MySQL restart. Oops. Let's see, init.d. Okay, that'll restart it. Okay, now this means we can now let's switch back to being a regular user so we don't accidentally mess things up. Okay, MySQL -u PAS Ward -p. -u says user PAS Ward, -p says enter a password. Show databases. Notice I only get to see ECE656 and the information schema database. I don't get to see the other databases that were there, that are there. The reason is I don't have the right to see those. Okay. Use ECE656. Show tables. There are no tables. Create. Again, we'll go over here. We'll look up a create table command. Okay. When you do your examination, I will happily allow you access to the network so you can see things like the create table statement. Okay. Create table, table name, create definition. Okay. There will be examples further down. Okay. So there's a lot of documentation in these. Okay. There's an example. It's creating table T. Column C is a character, and it specifies a character set. We don't particularly care about that. So let's just create table, my table. Name, char20. I don't know, salary. Oops, salary int. Show tables, my table, select star from my table, nothing there, insert into, and again, go over here, have a look, see what the syntax is. Insert, whoops, insert into. Okay, the insert statement. Insert into table name, and there may be specifications, but for this, insert into my table values, and I'm just going to have Fred, and I don't know, Fred earns 15.25, maybe salary is per hour. Okay, select star from my tables, my table. Okay, now we're not quite done yet. We're almost done, we're getting there. Let's go over to another terminal. A terminal not part of the virtual machine, this is part of your host machine. You would like to connect to your virtual machine as though it's just a separate internet host. So if you've installed the MySQL client software on your own machine, okay, and if you want to know how to do that, go to mysql.com, download whatever version is appropriate for you. Maybe you have Microsoft Windows, in which case download the Microsoft Windows installation software. Maybe you have Mac OS, there we go. Download the Mac OS software. Okay. So you have client software on your machine. You don't need to set up the server software on your machine. You only need the client software. So you may want to change this so that instead of setting up community server, you're just setting up the client software. Okay. If you go back into downloads on MySQL, this is community server. This is installer for Windows. I think this is just the client software if you do this. Windows MSI installer 24 megabytes, whereas if you go to community server, okay, whoops, is it going there? If you go to community server and say please give me the Windows version, come on, give me the Windows version, it should be. Give me the Windows version. Notice how, whoops, notice how it is significantly larger. Okay, you can get the installer. The point is, this is the whole server system. If you just go over, if you just want the client stuff on your machine, that's what you want. Okay, at least for Windows. There'll be a similar thing for Mac, I believe. You'll have to check into it. You may need to install the whole thing on the Mac, I don't know. You may also want the workbench. It can be useful, but there are limitations to it. So now, if we're on the client machine and we've got the software installed, we say, I would like to run the MySQL server. Oh, where is it? Quit. Okay. ifconfig, we want to know what the IP address is. So, IP address 192.168.57.3. Okay. Dash host. Dash H for host, 192.168.57.3 dash U PS4 dash P and enter password. Nice. So we go, where are we at? Enter the password. Oh, nice that it asked me for the password, but it can't connect. It asked me for the password without being able to connect. Why can't it connect? Okay, let's go over here. Etsy MySQL. Over on our virtual machine, there is a configuration setup. We want mysql.conf.d, mysqld.conf, CNF. There's this thing called bind address. This is the only address it is listening on. And 127.0.0.1 means only the local size site. We'll change that to 0.0.0.0, which is basically saying listen on everything. Okay. There are other things in here that will be relevant. Notice this port number 3306. Okay, that's the port it connects on. Here's the key buffer size. Okay, 16 meg. You will probably want to change some of these at some point. Okay, there are other things here, but for now that's fine. Service MySQL restart, because if we don't restart it, it won't be correct. Let's try again. Actually, before we try again, I'm just going to show 192.168.57.3 3306. It's connecting. Okay, see this 8.0.210 Ubuntu. This is a lovely little way of telling you that it's listening in on that address. So we can go over here, enter that password. Ooh. And apparently it didn't like it. Okay, we're going to have to debug that thing. Okay. I will look into why that isn't doing it and get back shortly. Pause for now. Okay, problem resolved. The problem was I had MariaDB client installed, not the MySQL client installed. And now I'm connected. Okay, and I'm connected from the client. Okay, from the host machine, not from the main machine. Okay. One thing you might be interested in, you can't access root from here. We never set up a password. Okay. There is no password. You can't log in remotely with root. That is a good thing. We don't want to be able to log in with the password. So I will do the issues for MariaDB separately, but broadly speaking, where we did a apt install MySQL server -8.0 instead, whoops, we did this, and we don't want to do it again, in fact. Okay, we want at list pipe grep MariaDB. Instead of installing, and let's look at MariaDB-server, instead of installing MySQL server, you want to install MariaDB-server-10.3. Okay, that would install the MariaDB server. You will again want the client software for MariaDB on your client machine, on your host machine. So, although I will probably do a slightly separate one, creating a separate host that is called ECE 656-MariaDB, for now the MySQL one is sufficient, and the modifications for a separate DB are relatively straightforward. I will separately have a video describing some of the create table options and some of the SQL, basic SQL query stuff, but this is sufficient for now, and I will save this and upload it. That should enable you to at least get started on setting that